Before gold ever filled his coffers, Arkad was just another young man among thousands in ancient Babylon. But destiny favors those who dare to dream. Beneath the scorching heat of Mesopotamia's desert stood the richest city the world had ever seen, Babylon. Its walls reached for the heavens, its temples whispered the secrets of the gods, and along its stone streets walked a man whose fate would change history. Arkad was not born into wealth. The son of a humble clay cup maker, he bore the dust on his shoulders and the earth on his feet. Yet in his heart burned a fire, the desire to be rich, not only in gold, but in wisdom. Why do some have so much while others have so little? He wondered as golden chariots passed him by. He worked as a scribe, copying laws and contracts, but the coins he earned vanished like dew in the morning heat. Everything changed. One quiet afternoon, a powerful elderly man named Algamish entered the room where Arkad was writing. He needed a contract, urgent, precise, and ready by dawn. Arkad worked through the night. When he handed over the scroll, he dared to ask, "Sir, how can I, a mere scribe, become wealthy?" Algamish stared at him and replied, "If you truly desire gold, you must first learn how to keep it." And so the learning began. Arkad committed. For 1 full year, he would save 1 coin of every 10 he earned, and more than that, he would make those coins multiply. But the road to wealth is never straight. He was deceived. He trusted the wrong men. He lost everything. But he did not give up. What separates the ordinary man from the extraordinary one is not what he possesses, but what he chooses to do with what he has. This was Arkad's first lesson, and it would lead him not just to Babylon's golden palaces, but into the hearts of all who dream of changing their destiny. And so in the sands of fate, Arkad planted the seed of eternal wealth. To his meeting with Algamish, Arkad found himself in the midst of an internal conflict. The promise of wealth was seductive, but the path to attain it would be arduous. With the first lesson engraved in his mind, he now had to put his mentor's words into practice. As the dawn of a new day broke, Arkad rose early, his body still weary from the night before. The ancient city of Babylon awakened with the sounds of the marketplace, of vendors and animals. But the young man knew that the secret of his journey was not in the busy streets but in the choices he made with each new dawn. Algamish had told him that to be wealthy, one must save a portion of what they earned. 1 of every 10, the old man had said. But this did not seem easy. How could he save what little he was able to accumulate? His mind was filled with doubts, but he forced himself to remember the master's words. Why do some have so much and others so little? He thought, watching the rich pass by in their golden chariots. They seemed oblivious to the struggles of the others. Arkad, however, was determined. Each day, he saved a portion of his coins, and though it was small, he began to see that a seed was being planted. But it was not easy. Temptation was everywhere. The markets, the parties, the vanity of the rich. Every day he battled the urge to spend more. It was during this time that a new friend appeared, a young man named Bansir, who also worked in trade but had fallen into debt due to gambling and false promises. Arkad, with patience, began to tell him about Algamish's teachings, about how wealth begins with self-control, with discipline, and with the wisdom to avoid temptation. But the true lesson for Arkad would come in a moment of failure. He trusted an investment that was recommended by a friend and lost everything. Despair consumed him. He sat by the side of a street, head down, his purse empty. But the lesson was about to be learned. He finally understood that the road to wealth required more than discipline and saving. It required wisdom. To build something lasting, one must know where to invest, Arkad reflected. Sadness gave way to a new resolve. He went back to seek advice, this time from the wise men of the city, to learn more about the true value of money. And so Arkad took the first step toward becoming more than just a rich man. He would begin to become a wise man. After months of dedication and learning, Arkad began to see the first signs of prosperity. The gold he had carefully saved and invested was now starting to multiply, and the wisdom he had gained from Algamish and the wise men of Babylon was manifesting in tangible results. That morning, Arkad woke up earlier than usual. The distant sounds of the city coming to life reached his ears, but he knew his true journey had only just begun. He had learned that wealth was not just about accumulating coins, but about making gold work for him. With renewed confidence, Arkad went to the market, where he met the merchant with whom he had invested in a business venture. They met by the river beneath the shade of a tree, where Arkad realized that his investment had blossomed. The merchant, with a wide smile, handed him a pouch filled with gold coins. "This is just the beginning," the merchant said, recognizing Arkad's wisdom in choosing where to invest. In the following days, Arkad applied the same principle to other ventures, and as a result his wealth grew. He did not simply accumulate, but used his wealth to generate more wealth, always seeking out opportunities for safe investments. He understood that, just as fertile soil yields an abundant harvest, wealth must be cultivated with patience and prudence. As his fortune grew, Arkad did not let pride blind him. He knew that his true wealth was in the wisdom he now shared with others. In a meeting with Bansir, the young merchant who had once asked him for advice, Arkad did not hesitate to teach him the value of saving, self-control, and above all, discipline. "Remember," Arkad said to Bansir, "wealth does not come from grand gestures, but from small daily habits. A coin saved today is a promise of abundance in the future." Over time, Arkad's reputation as a wise and prosperous man spread throughout Babylon. Many began to seek him out for guidance. In turn, whenever possible, he advised others with humility, sharing the lessons that had led him to wealth. But Arkad knew that the true test of wealth was not only measured in gold. He began to apply his wisdom in a deeper way, using his wealth not just for himself, but for the good of the community. Arkad bought properties and made investments that benefited many of those who had started with as little as he had. Finally, on a peaceful night, Arkad sat under the starry sky, looking down at Babylon. He knew his journey was far from over, but something within him ignited. True wealth was not just the gold he possessed, but the wisdom and teachings he could now leave as a legacy. True wealth, Arkad thought, is not what we possess, but what we are able to share with the world. Time passed, and Arkad continued to prosper. But something in his heart told him that true wealth was not just in the fortune he had amassed, but in the impact he could leave for future generations. He had become known not only as the richest man in Babylon, but also as one of its wisest. While many sought wealth for themselves, Arkad saw wealth as something that should be shared. He began to build schools, where he taught the principles that had been passed down to him. The wisdom he had learned from Algamish and the wise men of the city should not die with him. He wanted every citizen of Babylon to have the chance to learn the secrets of prosperity and happiness. Arkad invested in young people who, like him once, sought a better life. He established financial education programs and taught young merchants how to manage their finances with prudence. He told them wealth is a reflection of the mind, wisdom, and the choices we make. Gold is merely a tool. True wealth lies in the freedom to live with dignity. His impact was enormous. Soon, many families in Babylon began to prosper, not only materially but also in wisdom. Arkad did not just teach how to save coins, but how to cultivate the seeds of wisdom, patience, and self-confidence. He became a symbol of true prosperity, someone who used his wealth to enrich the lives of others. However, even with all his success, Arkad never forgot the lessons of humility he had learned. He knew that gold was merely a reflection of his wisdom, and that true greatness was in how he used what he had achieved. His fortune continued to grow, but he used this wealth to create a better future for Babylon. Arkad was now elderly, but he continued to be sought after by all who sought wisdom and guidance. The lessons he shared continued to be passed down from generation to generation. He had learned how to transform material wealth into an immortal legacy, something that would transcend his own life. On a peaceful night, as he gazed at the stars and reflected on his journey, Arkad thought to himself, "Gold can be lost, but knowledge remains forever." He knew that his true wealth was not measured in coins, but in the lives he touched and the generations he would help to prosper. Arkad no longer walked the bustling streets of Babylon, but his legacy was everywhere. What he had sown with so much effort over the years had blossomed, and the city he loved had become more prosperous than he could have ever imagined. Babylon, once merely a city of wealth, had now become a place where wisdom and prosperity walked hand in hand. The schools he founded had become the most prestigious centers of learning in the city. Young people from all walks of life came to learn the principles Arkad had taught: how to save, how to invest wisely, and how to live with dignity. His name had become synonymous with wisdom and lasting success. Wherever he went, people recognized him, no longer for the gold he possessed, but for the wisdom he shared. He had become a true mentor of Babylon, someone who understood that true power does not reside in gold or any material possession, but in the knowledge passed down from generation to generation. Arkad also saw the fruits of his work in other areas of the city. He invested in projects that helped build Babylon's infrastructure: bridges, markets, temples, and schools. He understood that a prosperous city needed more than just material wealth. It needed a solid foundation built on education and the collective well-being of its people. On one of the last days of his life, while gazing at the city of Babylon under the starry sky, Arkad reflected on his journey. He knew he had fulfilled his mission. His name would be remembered forever, not for the treasures he had accumulated, but for the treasures he had shared with others: wisdom, education, and a legacy of prosperity. However, Arkad knew that true wealth was not in what he had, but in what he had given to others. He knew that by sharing his knowledge and his lessons, he had planted seeds that would continue to grow and flourish long after his own life. As he looked toward the horizon, Arkad said to himself, Gold is fleeting, but knowledge is eternal, and the greatest treasure we can leave to future generations is the teaching of how to live with wisdom, courage, and dignity. And so, with a peaceful heart and full of tranquility, Arkad closed his eyes for the last time, knowing that he had left a legacy that would live forever.